Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for 30 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. I'm Trudy J and I'm here with Cheryl Phipps.
Hi there.
Wendy Vella.
Hello.
And Shah Barrett.
Hi.
Hello and
Hello.
welcome to the spa.
Welcome.
Now this week we have an awesome guest. He's a fellow Kiwi and
Yeah.
he's also super smart.
Yay!
And he's created Kindletrends, which is a new website that you can use and email that you can get
Newsletter.
to help you to help you research your genres on Amazon. It's just Amazon, isn't it, Nat?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it doesn't need to be any further than that. Okay, so anyway, say hello, Nat Connors.
Kia ora, good morning.
Hello.
Great to be here. I'm really happy to be here. And good afternoon, good evening to podcast listeners everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome.
He's already
So-
way smoother than us.
Right.
Yeah, already.
Yeah, I don't know.
Already,
I
sorry.
mean, you saw my facial expression when Trudy slipped in that thing about being really smart. I don't know where that came from.
You just said
You are.
research, and I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting and smart. Okay, so I'll
Thank
quickly
you,
do
thank
it. No worries. I'm going to quickly do Nat's bio, and then we're going to get right into some questions because we're going to go talk about Kindletrends, but then also talk about how you can research for your genre, which is what we all want to know. So.
Yeah.
Nat has been a self-published fiction author since 2016, and he's also a research academic and data scientist. And also, we discovered this morning, a dance teacher, teaches the tango. Awesome.
So cool.
Very cool.
Nat
So
started
cool.
using the information on Kindletrends himself to help outline, write, and launch his own books. And then he started sharing it with his friends. Kindletrends, as of I think we decided November last year, is now available to the self-publishing community as a whole. So everyone can get it. It's a monthly subscription. We'll talk about all of that at the end. And we can also talk about a fantastic discount code that Nat is offering to listeners to our podcast, which we are very thankful for.
Very thankful.
Again, at the end of the podcast. So wait and listen through all of
Stay listening.
Stay listening, people. Don't press stop. So can we start off right at the beginning, Nat, and talk a little bit about how you got into self-publishing and then what made you decide to start Kindletrends?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like a lot of, thank you for the bio to start. I think like a lot of self-published authors, I read a lot of books growing up. I grew up on a farm and I'm an only child. So for me, it was pretty much books and animals. I was actually on correspondence for a long time when I was young. I didn't really go to a conventional school till I was about 6 or 7. So I've always read a lot and I always sort of thought I would be a writer, but life happened along the way. And then I had a bit more time and I started getting back into the idea and thinking about it. And as I was doing that, I read a lot of books about how to make a living as a self-published author. And I thought, wow, people are doing this. This is amazing. And it looked like hard work, but also really fascinating. So one of the common themes that came out in all of the books I was reading was you need to really understand reader expectations. You need to understand what readers want and understand your market, like understand what you're giving them in your books. So I did a heck of a lot of looking at the charts and reading books, reading and making notes about what was in different books and how they were structured and all of that kind of thing. And as I was doing that, I made a lot of lists and I looked at these paper lists and notebooks and stuff. And I thought, geez, it would be great if I could just download all of this data in an Excel spreadsheet or in a PDF and print it off, So the first version of Kindletrends was that. I did that for myself just in an Excel spreadsheet. And then I started sharing this with some of my author friends who wrote in different genres to me, like in dark romance and sci-fi and techno thrillers and stuff like that. And they found the same thing very useful. And they said, hey, can you sort of aggregate this? Can you tell us what's going on in different markets? And I kept on doing this and kept on sort of tinkering for a few years. And eventually I thought, hey, maybe this is going to be useful to the wider author community. And every time I started sharing it with people, they were like, yeah, this is great. It's really valuable. And eventually I realized that one of the really good things was being able to do this on a regular basis. So every week or every month, I would be able to keep up with what was going on in my genre and what new books were coming out by looking at this report. So in a way, like a lot of tools, it started off with me trying to solve a problem that I had myself, you know?
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So
Really cool.
and so we launched the website and everything last November, and
Yeah.
it's been going well, I assume.
Yeah, very much. I mean, it's just been word of mouth until now. Like I've talked to you guys about it, and my friends have told other friends, like the shampoo ad. But that's maybe not a very good. Yeah. So people have been telling. There's been organic growth. Yeah, there's a marketing term, Shah. Organic growth.
Nice.
And thank you. Every time people have emailed me, I've tweaked the service, because one of the things that I care a lot about is getting feedback from people, and there's a lot of personal contact. I pride myself on having a personal relationship with every single one of the subscribers. So we always talk about what works for people in their genre and what their goals are and what their journey is. So it's growing like steadily week on week or something like that. But I don't do a lot of advertising yet.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And we've all had, I've been getting them. I don't actually, when I say we all, but I've been getting the weekly reports, and it's fascinating. Like, I can't wait to go through them, because I love the button right at the bottom that says click on this and you get all the blurbs.
Yeah.
In one document, all the blurbs are laid out for you, which is awesome. Anyway, but we're going to go through all of that in a minute.
If I could just interject here, just to say that I appreciate for you listening when you're out walking your dog or driving in the car at the moment, that this can be a little frustrating trying to picture these things. So just be assured that on the show notes, we're going to have screenshots of everything that we're talking about, and also Nat's introductory video, which is really all encompassing. But what's less important is how it looks, but what is more important is what the information does and why you need to know it. So that's what.
Yeah, thank you, Shah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So let's start at the beginning and say, how does it work? Like, what does, when you sign up, what happens?
Yeah. So every week and every month, I get the lists of the top books in the Kindle store for a bunch of different genres, across genres in romance and in science fiction and fantasy and in mystery, thriller and suspense. Oh, and I'm actually just trialing a young adult newsletter at the moment, and also an urban fantasy one. I think you guys.
I was just going to say,
Trudy, yeah. Okay, so I need some.
Yeah,
I need some feedback from you, Trudy, at some point when you've got time, about the UF one. Okay. So for each of these different genres, I get all of the data about these books from the Amazon website, all the stuff that you would pay attention to yourself if you're doing this by hand. Blurbs, titles, covers, prices, average review, number of reviews, release dates, all of that kind of stuff. I summarize all of this data in some charts, which help you make sense of it, like at a 10,000 foot view. And then I put all of this, along with the data itself, into a newsletter, an email newsletter, and I shoot this out to people every weekend. So every weekend, subscribers get a top 100 roundup of what's going on in the genres they're interested in. And every month, there's a deeper, monthly summary of what's gone on and what's been selling. The goal is that this is your sort of one-stop shop for where you start your research. You also, as a subscriber, you also get access to all of the back issues. We've been doing this since November, so there's a lot of historical trend information if you want to follow that and see how things are coming up and coming down. The other thing that is really new, and I'm really jazzed about, is what's called the dashboard, which is like an interactive online spreadsheet. And it's very easy to use, I think. And what this does is it lets you drill into specific parts of the top 100 or the top 400 or so in your genre of interest. So we all know that like in a genre like romance, let's say, there's lots of different subgenres or trends in romance. And what we're often caring about is the ones that we are specifically embedded in. Like I wrote small town romance, for instance. So I want to focus very much on that. And we know that the covers and the kind of tropes that are used and all of those things, they're quite different in a genre like small town romance than they are in, say, contemporary steamy billionaire romance, you know? So being able to drill into that data to a very fine level is one of the things that I think is really important and I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to go through I've got my paranormal one here. I printed it off.
Oh, cool.
And I want to go through it bit by bit, because I just think there's some really neat bits of information that I want to kind of help people to understand what's in there and why it's useful to them.
Thank
so
you.
the top bit is the 17 books, view the top 100. But I love the fact that you can do things like, so that says there were 17 new books in the top 100. You click the link and it takes you to a page with those 17 new books, which is just, instead of, I've seen other ones where it's taking you to the top 100 and you just sort of have to figure it out somehow. Whereas that's really specific, and it's really useful to see those covers, see those books, kind of have a look through them. And that's an awesome, just that by itself, I was loving when I was,
And that, sorry, I'll let you finish there. That number of how many new books in the top 100 is actually quite important, right? Because if you look at the top 100 and every week there's 50 or 60 new books, that shows it's a very active category and it's turning over really quickly, right? And to me, that implies that your publishing frequency has to be quite high, because the rest of the category is turning over really fast. If there are fewer new books in the top 100, that doesn't necessarily mean it's easier or better or anything like that, but it does mean that maybe you don't have to publish as fast. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Yeah, so each one of those numbers is there for a reason, and a lot of the reasons are about helping you understand the dynamics of a particular market or sub-market. The other thing I want to say about like that week in summary section is you can spend as much time as you want. If you've got 5 minutes on a Monday morning while you're drinking your coffee, just look at the week in summary and it'll tell you what's trending, what's new, what the ranks are doing. That's it. If you've got a couple of hours, then you can drill into the data in the dashboard and really go down to your sub-genre and get the covers and get the blurbs and read through them and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, Trudy, carry on, please.
Back to me. It's all about me. No, it's not all about me, by the way. So the next one was where the median, i.e. the 50th ranked book, is where it sits. And that's interesting, because for paranormal, this one says it's 564, which is really high in the store. And it says to me that paranormal is a really competitive market, I guess you would say. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it does. And like we know that's high. Anything above 1,000, that's serious money, right? But one of the reasons why that's the median, though, is that it's often quite, has quite a long tail. So, the next thing, which is maybe a bit more statsy, but stay with me here, I say half the books are between this and that. So that's the middle 50% of the books. And to be honest, I actually think that's much more important than medians or averages. I've got a couple of good stories about that later on. But what we know is that books aren't one point. They are a spread. So that 50% of the books range, that to me, that's where you want to aim to be with your books, right? You can't, you might be lucky or you might be really strong and you might get to the very top of your category. That's awesome. But for a working author, what I want to do is I want to get into that median range. And that median range, as you'll see, Trudy, it's probably quite a bit bigger. Like the bottom end of that, it's maybe down in the thousands or something like that.
Well, so, this half the books in the top 100 were between 350 and 765.
765, wow. Okay,
so paranormal, again, it's quite a competitive market.
Yeah, very strong. Yeah. But remember also, we can drill, as we know, there's lots of different subgenres in paranormal. So if anyone's interested in writing paranormal romance, please don't be put off by this, because you can drill into a sub-market and maybe find something which is a bit less competitive and a bit less difficult to get your foothold in.
And we can do that via the dashboard. Is that how?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Awesome. And get the covers and blurbs and yada.
Yeah. So my next favorite bit is the top trending tags. So this tells me straight away that alpha male, fantasy, crime, dragon, the top. Is it just a word, top words, or when you say tags? What do you mean?
I use the word tags because I didn't want to say themes or tropes or genres. The reason for that is we know as authors and as readers, those things are all quite subjective. Some people will say this is a theme. Some people will say, no, it's trope. Some people will say, no, it's a genre. And genre discussion in like literary criticism is a really big deal. So those things are all valid, and I find those discussions really fascinating. But as working authors, kind of what we want to know is this thing in this book? And we're really lucky in genre fiction, because we know in a genre fiction blurb and in the title and in the subtitle, you've got to be pretty clear about what your book is about. There's not a lot of room for subjectivity or coyness or something like that. Some people can do it. If you're a really big name author, then you can write a vague blurb and you can get, and I've seen people do it, but generally, if you're a working writer, you've got to signpost what you are delivering to readers very clearly. And I'm okay with that, because that to me shows respect for their time and respect for their money. We are entertainers. This is an entertainment genre, and I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. So to answer your question, Trudy, I call those topic tags because they are a mixture of themes and tropes and blurbs, themes and tropes and subgenres and all of those kinds of things. Some of them are really obvious, what we would call tropes, like friends to lovers. There's a friends to lovers tag, and if that's in the book, then, but other ones, there are ones like supernatural, or there's a really interesting story about crime, which maybe we can come back to. If there's any mention of crime or criminal activity in a book, in the blurb, sorry, or in the title, then it gets the crime tag. Now, crime is not really a trope. It might be a theme, but, I don't know about that. But one of the things I found that was very interesting was crime as a theme, or whatever you want to call it, a topic tag, comes up in an awful lot of genres. It's far and away the most common tag across sci-fi, mystery, romance, the whole thing. And we think the reason for that is that crime is a really common motivating plot element, So to go back to what you were saying, that the topic tags section tells us generally about what readers can expect to get when they buy the book. And that's why I think it's useful.
Mm. And then there's a separate section which is frequent words in the titles this week. That's interesting as well. So again, it's wolf, paranormal, vampire, and shifter, which is all very, of course they are for paranormal.
Sometimes it's kind of what you would expect, although sometimes you find some interesting things. And again, there's a link to the entire list. So that's the top 4 or 5 or whatever, but you can get the whole list of all of the most common words, and often you find like the 20th most common, or below the obvious ones like wolf and paranormal and shifter, then you find a few and you're like, oh, that's interesting, why are people saying that in their blurbs?
Yeah, that's cool. And then there's a button for open the dashboard. So for this point you go, I want more, click that and go to the dashboard, and then under that is the bestsellers rank. It's kind of hard because this is a visual thing, but could you just sort of describe what that graph is showing to us?
Sure thing, yeah. And remember, we've got some pictures in the show notes coming up afterwards. So what the bestsellers rank plot is it's a distribution of all, like a map of all of the books in the top 100 or top 400 or whatever, and what their ranks are, but also how old they are. Because when a book has a particular rank, sometimes you've got to ask, why is it doing well? It might be doing well, it might have a high rank because it's just been launched and it's taking advantage of the Amazon algorithms, which privilege new books. Some of your readers may have heard of the idea of the 30-day cliff or something like that, where new books that are less than 30 days old kind of get a boost. And this is, true enough, I think, as far as it goes. But then after your book is 30 days old, it has to rely on organic sales, on people reading it and recommending it to their friends and writing stuff about it and so on. So I divide up all of the books in the top 100 into these 3 groups, these 3 tranches: less than 30 days, 1 month to 6 months, and then older than 6 months. So if a book is still ranking well after 6 months, then that tells us something quite interesting about it. Either it's got really evergreen themes, which are always popular, or it's from a big name author, or maybe it's the end of a long series or something like that. So this graph gives us a way of seeing, again, how much turnover, like the new books in the top 100, how much turnover there is in this genre, and how much longevity there is. So if you have a book which is 6 months old, can you expect it to still be selling? Can you expect it to still be ranking? And that, again, different genres are very different. If you look at a few of these, you'll see that like contemporary romance is very heavily front-loaded. There's a lot of books which are less than 30 days old. It's going, on the other hand, say historical romance. Wendy, I think you write historical? Yeah, okay. So historical romance, as you probably know, has a lot more evergreen books. It has a lot more books which are more than 6 months old. It also actually has a higher proportion of trad books, which is interesting, and maybe potentially a higher proportion of wide books and stuff like that. So to return to your question, Trudy, the bestsellers rank plot is a way of seeing not only what's selling and how much it's selling, but also what the age of it is, and then maybe digging into why that is.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating. That's good, because I was like looking at that graph going, I don't understand that. So,
So the videos on the site will talk a little bit about how to use each of these tools to start your analysis. One of the other things I say is this is like the beginning of your research journey, not the end. I can't tell anyone what to write, nor would I try, but what I can do is to make it a heck of a lot easier for you to figure out what it is you want to write.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, and then the next, so then you've got how old the books are. Now the next bit is my favorite, because it's pictures, and it's hard to describe it on the podcast. I'll show it to people who are listening to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's very cool.
That is cool, but it's basically all the covers, and is it the top 100 again? Is that what it is?
That's right.
So it's all the covers of the top 100 put together against each other, so you can get an idea of the colors. And then right next to it is a kind of graphically represented visual of
like a palette,
the colors.
Palettes of each book.
It's actually on the graphic for this podcast, if you want to look at it.
Okay, awesome.
So cover designers love this section because it allows them to keep up with what's going on every week. You know, you bring it up on your big monitor and you can see the top 100 covers all put together, and also the color palette. And you can see maybe half of them have quite a dark color palette, but the other half have quite a light one, you know. And if you look at a genre like urban fantasy, you'll see the things that you expect to see. You'll see a lot of purple and a lot of green in backgrounds and things like that. So again, with all of these things, the theme is being able to quickly and easily get an idea, like a high level idea of what's going on, and then drill into individual bits that are the ones that you specifically care about. I'm really glad you like it, Tree.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's cool.
What I think is cool about it is because there are definitely changes in covers over time, right?
Yeah, totally.
So something that used to work in a particular genre might be moving out. Like there was a while back where people were talking about for urban fantasy that the darker color tones were working better. Like, so a lot of the authors were talking about changing their the glowing purples. I don't know, maybe it doesn't reflect it in your graph, to kind of darker tones. And that was interesting. I mean, and I had that was just kind of the talk among the people, you know. And so it's nice to have something like this to look at that kind of maybe actually gives actual evidence of what the color tones are. I love it. I think it's great.
I mean, we can go back, like, if we're interested, if anyone's interested, they can go back and actually look. You can get the last, because I've been going since November, you can get the last 3 or 4 months of say paranormal romance covers in the montage, and just put them, all 4 of them, next to each other and see if there's a difference. I've done that in the past, and you can definitely see trends.
I think it's a really good idea too, to have them next to each other so that you can see if the trend is sticking, and then you know, you've got a really good chance of, when you purchase your cover or get it custom made, that it actually does fit. And one of the things that I want to remind listeners about here is that the branding in your covers, if you're writing in a series or even if you're not, is really important. I can see on the wall behind Cheryl, are those your titles, Cheryl? Yes, I've got cozies on one side and
so I can see, like, even from here, I can see that really strong branding. I can see the similarity, you know. And that's a great example of the kind of thing that the cover montage is useful for, because you can look and you can say, okay, who's got the strong branding? Whose covers are all kind of together? And I can go, yeah, that's a such and such cover, you know. And a good cover is one where in time, I think you can tell who it is, even at thumbnail size. Because, you know, I was thinking about this yesterday, and one of the things I wanted to say to listeners was, for me, covers make a promise to the reader about what a book has in it, and then the blurbs kind of deliver on that promise. They explain how they're going to get, how the reader is going to get what it is that is being offered in the cover, you know. And we learn these things unconsciously. So if we're looking at a cover and I see a young lady and she's got long hair and it's blowing out behind her and she's holding a sword and there's kind of a purple glow and she's wearing leather pants, I'm going to go, I think this is an urban fantasy cover.
She's maybe glowing a little bit.
It's like a katana. But on the other hand, if I see like a big buff dude and he's kind of staring off 3/4 and there's like a wolf floating, like just floating in the darkness behind him, I'm going to go, I think this is a shifter cover. So we all know, right? So we all know that there are promises we make in our covers, and then we develop them, we follow up on them in our blurbs. And part of the reason why I talk about studying blurbs and then studying covers is that you learn in a blurb what kind of promises there are, and then you go back to the covers, because the cover, for me, is the first thing generally that a reader sees. They see the cover first, and then they go, oh, that's cool. Then they read the blurb. So I start with the blurbs, and then I work backwards, and I say, okay, what promises are in the blurb? What themes and tropes are going to be in this book if I read it? And then I go, okay, how is the cover showing me those promises? What elements are there? And there's some really good stuff about cover design out there. I've got some links for the listeners about how that is done, and how every element, right down to the type, every element in your cover says something about what's in the blurb and ultimately what's in the book.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I think
That's cool stuff.
one of the things that new authors come in and they think, oh, it has to be original and new and different to everyone else. I don't want the same cover, but actually what you're saying and what we know is that actually keeping the cover within those kind of expectations of the reader, like within a genre, because that's how readers know that it's a book that they're going to want to read. And if your book is too different or doesn't show them those kind of expected kind of symbols or signals, they won't pick it up.
And
they're not going to understand. Sorry, go on, Wendy.
No, I was just saying, especially for a newbie writer, reinventing the wheel for a newbie writer is a big no.
I see it a lot on author forums. They want to be different. I don't want to put a shirtless man on my cover, and to me it's just a death knell. You're just hobbling yourself if indeed your genre needs a shirtless man on your cover. If you don't want to do it morally, whatever, God bless you, but if you want to sell books if you want to sell books, sorry, it sounded a bit snarky.
One of those days.
That's okay.
Seen it a few times.
Not like you
clearly.
to be controversial.
No, it's not treated like me.
Actually, Matt, you promised us a few controversial statements, and I'm feeling like Shah is the one providing.
No, well, normally it's me, so I'm really glad that it's Nat's throwing out the controversial statements there.
I'm doing what I can.
But I would say one thing I do see is authors asking other authors about their opinions on covers, and as long as they're in the same subgenre, that can be a way of researching. But really, ultimately, the only opinion that actually counts is the reader's. And so I think what this does is presents it in a way that it's non-personal. It's not some author saying, oh, I don't like your shirtless man. It is like, here's what's selling.
This is what is designed. So again, I never tell people that they should do what everyone else is doing. But I think if you make an informed decision about why you're doing what you're doing, then you're that much better off. One of the themes that I talk about a lot in the newsletter is benchmarking. Like you don't have to copy what everyone else is doing, and nor should you, not really. But it really behooves you to understand what everyone else is doing and why they're doing it. So if your cover is off market or off brand, then readers aren't going to understand what it is you're selling them. They aren't going to hear the promises that you're making. And if they can't hear the promises that you're making, they're not going to get to your blurb, and they're not going to get to your content. So your story could be fantastic, but if people don't ever get to it, then it's not going to help them.
Yeah. And equally, if you're spending a whole lot of money on advertising to that, then that's also really, like, I think this is another way of making sure that your advertising money is well spent as well further down the track.
Yeah.
And you can be using these things in your advertising, like learning the most common words that are used in titles or tag. What do we call them? Tag topics. It helps you in terms of your advertising, because that you know that those are
and also choosing your categories and your keywords when you're loading your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I do want to bring to listeners' attention here is what I call the blurb key phrases. So one of the things in the dashboard is for each blurb, I pull out the kind of key phrases in the blurb, and those are the ones which identify an individual blurb really uniquely. And those are things that you can maybe target for ads, or they are like the most important words in that blurb. You can get a sort of a synopsis of the blurb from looking at them, but also maybe if you target them for ads, you're going to get a good price for them. We know that very, very popular ad keywords cost a lot of money per click, you know. So what we try and do with the blurb key phrases is find things which are resonant with individual books or individual authors, but they're not words that everyone else is bidding for. So they're maybe going to be a little bit more cost effective.
Oh, that's awesome. I haven't.
Yeah.
I'm going to go now in the middle of the podcast and just check that. No, I'm kidding.
Can build ads. Yeah,
all of us are like tick, 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 tick. I think we need to check this and check that.
Yeah, we probably we can maybe leave ads for another session. But one of the things that a lot of people do here is they use this to build ads really, really quickly. Every week, you know, every Monday morning, they get the most relevant books out of the dashboard for their genre or their specific brand, and they build an ad like that. So 5 minutes, boom, every Monday morning, and that means they've always got new ads and new content.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
like
if I
that.
was designing Facebook ads, I'd look at that color palette of those colors, and I'd be replicating that in the ad.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. That's why we have Shah here, for the good ideas.
Yeah.
So the next bit on the email is trending in blurbs, and it's a word cloud. I love word cloud.
I do too.
I'll show for
quite
people.
visual.
There's nothing like a good word cloud, is there? Right?
It's not.
Very
What's a word
satisfying.
cloud between friends, really?
So for those people who don't
ones.
know, for those people who don't know what a word cloud is, it's
Thank you, Trudy.
all the words. Oh, you do want to explain it, Nat? Actually,
No, you go.
Okay, it's all the words that are used in. I'm assuming it's in blurbs. You said it's in the blurbs, and the words used more often become bigger and bigger. So you can immediately at a glance see, for example, in this one for paranormal, that the biggest one seems to be time, which isn't necessarily life, new, world, shifter, mate, paranormal. All of these things are being used quite a lot within there, and so they're bigger. And the words that are in there but are not as often used are smaller. So it gives you at a glance the ability to see the most popular words in blurbs, which is amazing.
Yeah, this is a really common data visualization technique because it helps us as humans focus our attention on the things that are most important. You know, if you see something in a table, then your eye goes to the top, which is natural. But if everything in the table is kind of the same size, then after a while you sort of get a bit fatigued and you're not really sure where you're meant to be looking and everything. But with this kind of visualization, your eye is automatically drawn to the things which are the most important, and the things which aren't so important because they aren't so frequent, they kind of recede into the background.
Okay. Oh, that's so good to know.
And if it's in colors, and it's like, for someone like me who's not data driven and, you know, really not data driven, that word cloud's great, because you instantly can go there and go, oh, that's bang that, you know. I really love those
and
things.
just for the listeners as well who are interested, you have all of the data, so the number of times each word is used, you can get that in a link as well. So if you see a word that's really big and you're like, oh, why is that? Then you can go and dig into the data and find out why it's there. So for instance, Trudy, you talked about time. That's an interesting one. Maybe in blurbs, people talk about running out of time or something having to happen in time, because that creates a sense of urgency in the blurb. You know, you want to find out what happens when time runs out. That seems kind of plausible to me, but we'd have to go and check.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
And that, so that's the next bit of the thing. And then the next one is interesting: setting versus character in blurbs. So this is a really fascinating. This is almost like plot versus character, would you say?
A little bit. So there's a few elements in there, and I'll take a moment to kind of talk through them. One of them is that I am divvying up blurbs into first person versus third person, because as we know, books vary, and you can see real differences. Like, you guys probably won't be surprised to learn that in mystery genres, most blurbs are third person. Like in mystery, that's maybe 75-80% third person, whereas in contemporary romance, it's probably 60 to 70% first person. Now, again, for listeners, that's not to say that you can never do something or you must always do something. I never say that ever, but it helps to know why people are doing what they're doing. So what we can do is look at how many books are in how many blurbs are in first person versus in third person, and say, well, why is that? The other thing there is how long the blurbs are, how many words and how many sentences. And I use this a lot when I'm crafting my own blurbs, because I know that I want my blurb to be not too long and not too short, but kind of just right. So if I know that the average blurb is 8 or 9 sentences long, then if I'm going to include more than 8 or 9 sentences, I better have a good reason, because I know that readers are kind of attuned to that's about where they stop reading, because that's what they're normally reading. Doesn't mean I can't do it, but it means I need to know why I'm doing it. On the other hand, I'm probably not going to put only 2 sentences in, because readers are already expecting to learn a little bit more about the story and a little bit more about the characters. So I need to make my blurb a bit longer,
So it's all about making an informed decision, isn't it, really?
Yes,
You're having all the facts there, and then you get to pick and choose, and it's up to you if you're going to go down the right route.
Yeah. And being able to drill fast, being able to drill into the stuff which is really relevant to you. Because of that top 100, it's quite possible that at least half of them are just not going to be relevant to you, because they're not like your books. So being at the dashboard lets you pull out the ones that are relevant to you and just get the blurbs for those. So if I'm writing a friends to lovers romance, I can go and filter and say, show me all the friends to lovers romances. Now I want to look at all the blurbs with that trope in them. Okay, how does everyone sell that friends to lovers trope in their blurb? What's the price breakdown for friends to lovers romances? Are they at $2.99 or are they at $3.99? Which ones are at $3.99? Are they in series? Oh, right. All of that kind of stuff. So drilling quickly into the right stuff that's really relevant to you. To go back to your question, sorry, Trudy, the setting versus character. Yeah, okay. So what I was trying to do there was to get some qualitative, some sort of about information about blurbs. So not just reporting the numbers, but also saying what do blurbs tend to be about? And the way that I did that was I looked at the number of times that a sentence in a blurb has a personal pronoun in it. So she, he, I, we, they. If a sentence has a personal pronoun in it, it's probably about a character. It's I went down to the road to get some milk. She was embroiled in a galactic battle to save the universe, etc. Those are sentences about characters. If it doesn't, then it's probably about setting and events. The dairy was on fire, or something like that. So I couldn't get the milk. That's not one of my actual blurbs, listeners, just so you know.
I'd probably
know about the dairy being on fire.
Why was the dairy on fire, though?
Yeah, I probably, sorry, also for listeners overseas, a dairy is a corner shop. I apologize.
Convenience store.
Convenience store. Thank you very much, guys. I apologize for my inadvertent New Zealandness there. So the point is, again, not to say that you should always write about setting, or that you should always write about your characters in the blurb, but to see who's doing what in different genres. And what we find, again, is that different genres and different books, different types of books within genres actually are very different. Some historical novels have quite a lot about setting and events and relatively little about characters. On the other hand, some contemporary romances are all I, this, she, that, he, that, we, that, they're all this, and they say almost nothing about the actual setting.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? We kind of know that. This is, I think a lot of this information is we kind of know it intuitively, but it's actually knowing it on purpose as authors to design what we're doing.
And that's a really big thing for me, and it's a really big plus for me to hear you say that, because like I was saying earlier, this kind of information should sort of back up and support your intuition most of the time. Sometimes it will challenge you and you'll go, oh, I didn't realize that. Like the thing I was saying before about crime, when I look at the most common topics over the last 12 months in almost any genre, crime is really up there. It's in science fiction, it's like number 2, number 3 all the time. In fantasy, same thing, not just in mystery, right? In romance. And I thought, oh, that's a bit strange. Is there something wrong? And I redid it and I was like, no, this is really what's happening. And then I thought about it a bit and I realized that, like I was saying before, crime is a very flexible motivating element in a plot. It can be used to raise stakes or to background a character arc, someone's journey from, being a criminal or engaging in criminal behavior to redemption. It can be used to increase the tension, like something has happened and will we catch the perpetrators, or will they be found out, or that kind of thing. So in a lot of ways, the most frequent topics and tropes, they aren't necessarily the ones that are they aren't the ones that we always think about. They're often ones that are the most flexible and the most useful for writers to do what they want to do and tell a story, which is cool. So that's an example of a situation where I saw something that challenged my intuition, because I didn't expect crime to be like the number 3 most popular topic in romance. Turns out it is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Wendy's Regency romances. Every single one of those, well, most of them have an element of crime in them, but I guarantee if you said to her readers, is there crime in them, they would say no. It's like an underlying current that will drive the plot, drive the characters forward. Excuse me, Wendy, talking about you as if you're actually not here didn't actually write the books themselves. But often what it does is it gives another element to that romance. It just gives another, byline, if you like, that can go through it. But yeah, that's really interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that in, for example, science fiction.
Yeah. So one of the things I think I might have been saying to you, Shar, at one point was, this made me realize that plot elements aren't like a passive thing that just sit there and we show them off. Actually, it's better to think of them as being like parts of the machine of our story, which are helping to move the plot forward. And one of the things that I talk about a lot when I talk about research is understanding each of the bits of that machine, like a steam train or something, and seeing how each of them fits together to move the plot forward. And that starts, of course, with knowing what they are.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Word of the podcast, I'd say.
Fascinating. So, and then we've come to the last. This is just the weekly email I'm looking through here. This is not even the monthly one, and then the next button is download the blurbs, and this is the function that I was talking about earlier. You click on it, and suddenly you've got a big list of all the blurbs that you can just look at and get read through or do it. I mean, clearly you've gone through the blurbs and analyzed them and have kind of an easy to view way of analyzing them on the dashboard and even through the word cloud and other places. But just being able to read through them like that so easily is just another big bonus to me, definitely.
Yeah, print them out. And because, again, one of the ways that a lot of really skilled blurb writers recommend to get better at writing blurbs is just to read and write a heck of a lot of blurbs. I've got a couple of great resources about that for listeners as well. And they say, read a lot of blurbs and write them out. Write out your own ones longhand, because it forces you to really think about what each one of these words is doing. And a good discipline for that then is every week read the blurbs in the top 100. It's a few thousand words. Print them out, have a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, and just skim them. Mark out the ones that catch your eye, and then say, why do these ones catch my eye? And they're right there for you.
I'm getting chills as you say that. That's such good advice. Oh my God, I'm totally doing that.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's hard.
Blurbs are a real problem.
And as we know, blurb writing is a real skill, and like a muscle, it takes kind of constant exercising.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Awesome. Oh, so much information. So much
there's a lot.
stuff.
Yeah, and I understand for listeners, it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's we're covering so many topics here.
Yes.
One of the things that I want to remind people is, one, you can always go back to stuff. Like, one of the reasons why I made this an email is it's just there in your inbox. You can filter it and put it away. It'll still be there when you come back. The other thing is, you can always email me and ask me. And say, hey, Matt, what's the heck is this about? And I will always do my best to give you an answer. Like I say, nothing is secret. Everything is open.
And Matt, when you receive the email, are you signing up for a particular genre, or do you get all of them?
You get all of them. So one of the other things is, being a New Zealander, I'm not really very good at kind of hard sell or search engine optimization or marketing. It's kind of not my, so one price for the subscription, you get everything. You can sign up to all of the genres and you get all of the freebie stuff. There's no premium tiers, no upselling, none of that. You get everything all in one go, and it's a monthly subscription and you can cancel anytime you want. One of the other things is, one of the other things is, I'm very big on the idea that it has to provide you value, you, the listener, every month, month after month. If it doesn't, I'll just give you your money back. Honestly, that's it.
Nice.
I want this to be something that pays for a couple of hours of your time. It's 2 hours at US minimum wage per month. If it doesn't save you 2 hours of your time per month, I want to give you your money back because I need to do something better, right?
That's awesome.
Wonderful.
Really good.
Thank you.
So one thing I would suggest is that when I signed up for like about 10 different genres. I don't know how many there are. It felt like 10. And now every week I'm getting all of those emails.
It can be a little,
So that was a little overwhelming. So I would suggest that when you sign up, just click on maybe your top 2. And start getting those and get used to the concept of it. And then if you want to go back in, I'm assuming you can go back in and sign up for more later. And I'm hoping that I can go back in and just cancel a couple of them. So I don't.
No, absolutely. So you can, and remember also, there's all the archives on the website. So if you start writing something else, like you decided you want to take up writing paranormal, but you haven't been subscribing to it, you haven't lost anything, because you can go to the website, log in, and just go back and get all the paranormal data. It's all right there.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow.
So is there, have we covered the main stuff, the main research stuff that you cover in your, what else is there on the dashboard that maybe isn't in the emails?
It's really valuable. Okay, so the most important things I think in the dashboard are, one, being able to filter by those topic tags and drill down to say, look at the individual books and the price breakdown and the covers for things within a genre. So let's take my Friends to Lovers example from before. I'm looking at a romance genre and I see that there's a bunch of Friends to Lovers, because maybe I look at the week in summary and it's gone up 5 mentions in the top 100, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I then go to the dashboard, I say filter by Friends to Lovers, and then I have all of them laid out for me in the cover gallery. So there's another function in the dashboard which is like the cover montage, except it's just the ones that you want.
Oh, nice.
If I want to say, show me all of the covers for all the Friends to Lovers books which are in KU, but they are not trad published. Boom, there it is.
Wow.
30 seconds. I can do that while I'm holding my breath.
Wow. Awesome.
So that's really valuable, because those are my market, right? Those are the things, let's say, that I want to write. So filtering by topic tags is one thing that I think is really powerful. For people who are doing AMS ads, I think the Blurb Key Phrases thing is really powerful as well, because that gives you access to a whole lot of phrases which identify books that maybe a lot of other people aren't bidding for. And the other thing that I think is quite neat, which is related to them, is that the graphs in the dashboard update in real time. So if I'm looking at, and this is a little bit complicated, if I'm looking at the breakdown of prices, let's say between $2.99, $3.99, $4.99, and then I go filter by Friends to Lovers, now I'm looking at the breakdown of prices just for the Friends to Lovers books. And that means, so I can make pricing decisions about my book at that point as well. Again, to stress this to listeners, you don't have to price your book at any particular rate, but it helps to know what reader expectations are about price, say relative to length. So maybe the $3.99 books are all either longer in terms of words, or maybe they're all part of a long series or something like that. So maybe that's relevant, So if you're writing the first in a series, maybe you don't want to price it at $3.99 or $4.99. Maybe you want to price it at $2.99. Being able to dig into that and find that out kind of straight away, that's really valuable.
That's awesome. I love it.
Cool.
Love it. Okay. And I mean, is there anything? So, I mean, we've talked about reader expectations, and that's kind of essentially what we're doing here, isn't it? Like, do you want to sort of wax lyrical about a little bit about that?
Yeah, waxing lyrical is my bag. As you guys know, there's a lot of great how to research discussions, and there's a lot of very, very smart and very successful authors who talk about how to research and how to find out about reader expectations in different ways. The way that I do this is I always start with the content. And I think I'd sort of mentioned this before, that for me, content is, everything comes back to the words in your story, inside the book. And that means that if you want to understand those reader expectations, I think, and this may be a little backwards, I think you have to start by reading a lot of books, like a lot of books, as many as you can. But you've got to read them mindfully as well as you can, and you've got to read the right ones. And that's where the filtering in Kindletrends really helps you. It helps me say, okay, I'm not looking to be trad published, so maybe the trad published content is not what I should focus my time on right now. I am looking to be in KU, so Kindle Unlimited, so I'm going to focus on those books. So I start with the content, and I always say to people, if they ask me what genre should I write, I don't really talk about revenue or what's hot, because I say there is money, there's a good return in every genre as long as you understand reader expectations. I'm sure we've all met people who are having a lot of fun and making readers happy and making a good living in every genre, as long as they understand what readers are looking for, you know? Yeah. And in order to do this, you need to read a lot. So when people say to me, what genre should I write? My answer is always the genre that you can read and read and read and read and read and read and read some more and not get sick of it. Yeah. So Cheryl, you write cozy mysteries. You know, if somebody read a couple of cozy mysteries and they were like, God, not another cupcake. Like, if I hear about one more adopted kitten, I'm going to scream. Like, cozy mysteries, probably not for you, you know, exactly. Because you've got to really learn those tropes. So I never tell people to get into a genre because it's hot. I always tell them to get into a genre. It doesn't have to be your ultimate favorite, but it has to be something that you can immerse yourself in day after day, week after week, month after month, and admire and enjoy and laugh at and all of that. And that's why you start with the content, understand what readers are getting in popular books, and then move on. You move on to the blurbs and to the titles, because like I was saying, blurbs deliver on the promise that the covers make. So then I talk about looking at blurbs, reading the blurbs every week in the PDF that Trudy was talking about, but then maybe drilling, using the dashboard into blurbs for my specific area of interest, copying and pasting them out. So you can download, for those who are interested in a bit more techie, you can download all the data from the dashboard. So filter out the stuff you care about and then say, just give me a hard copy of that. Boom, done. Nice. You can read it and archive it, take it away on holiday with you, whatever. So once I've looked at blurbs and how long they are, and I've written a bunch out and I'm getting a feeling for it, then I can move on to covers. I can look at how each of those blurbs relates to the cover. Because like I was saying, I think in a good cover and a good blurb, they really fit together like this. You know why the blurb is saying the things that it is, and you know why the elements in the cover are there. Then finally, and this is maybe a little unusual, then I ask people to look at what I call mechanics. And mechanics in a genre are everything else, pricing, release frequency, KU versus wide ratio, how long books are, series structure, what you put in your front matter at the beginning of the book, what you put in the back matter at the end of the book. Those things are all really relevant, but they're all not things generally that readers see. They're all things that are working like behind the scenes. And that's why I sort of put them last, because I think you're much more likely to be able to interpret them right when you've got a good understanding of the concepts and the content and the stuff that readers are picking up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so, I would say looking at all those things would take you hours and hours and hours. So to be able to do this at a couple of clicks of a button, I think that's amazing.
Going to the right ones. So that's Trudy. That's my 2 minutes on how I do research.
I just have a couple of points. One thing that you were saying, and I'm just like immediately going, oh my God, this is amazing. The idea that I can go in and say, okay, I'm going to read all the Wolf Shifter books that I can find that are in first person on the top 100 that are priced at $3.99 or whatever I'm aiming at, and then I get this list, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go read those books, and then I'm going to understand the competition. So those are my comp books, you know. Like,
so one of the exactly. It's finding your comps from a traditional publishing perspective. So one of the things that I often say to people is that It means that you spend 100% of your time doing the stuff that only you can do, using your human brain to read and learn and applying your intuition, and you spend 0% of your time doing the donkey work that a computer can do. So what this is about is really focusing and amplifying your research time. So you still have to do the hard work for our international listeners, but but you
Kiwi
can,
again.
but that work is much more efficient when you can go straight to the stuff that's relevant for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, shy at you. Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask about is that, what have you ever spotted a trend like that? That would be what I'd be curious about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the thing is, most trends don't happen in like a week or something like that. You know, you don't see the week-to-week variation. It's a bit like the weather. You know, you can have warm days in winter and cold days in summer. That doesn't mean that summers come 6 months early, right? Because that's not how weather works. So what you see is a little bit of variation over weeks, and then maybe gradual shifts over months. So if I look at the last couple of months, I'll see maybe a few things changing, but even then, it takes maybe 3 months, I think, before some trends are kind of happening. And you could get maybe what you would call micro trends, which aren't going to be big enough to really affect an entire genre, but you'll just see that maybe 1 or 2 authors are publishing a few more books at a particular in a particular way, and you'll be able to pick up on that. One of the things I would say is I see trend changes in pricing and length and release frequency a lot more than I do trends in content in a lot of really popular genres. So yeah, we know sometimes there's a big move and everyone, like a certain topic or trope comes out of nowhere, but that takes maybe 3 months or so. And what I do see, though, is more subtle changes, and the dashboard and Kindletrends help me pick up on this, that maybe 1 or 2 big name authors have started pricing their books at $4.99 instead of $3.99. So I will see the average, the distribution of book prices maybe go up over a month or 2. And that's relevant information to me, because I will be thinking, hey, maybe I can follow them if they're doing it and getting away with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, has anyone got any other questions from that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's great.
I've got a comment, because I always have.
We stop.
No, please.
Always have comments. So I'm just thinking of the person that's listening to this. 2 people actually that are listening to this. First of all, one of the people is a kind of a newer self-publisher. And thinking, okay, but how does this apply to me? So this is my thoughts on how it applies to them. It is, first of all, I think just the blurb ability to funnel the blurbs that are relevant for you and have all that in a list instead of clicking through, as I have done watching Shortland Street of an evening, through every single top 100 in that particular. So the time saving is worth the money alone. Secondly, I'd say, as Nat said before, if you can learn to write your own blurbs, you're far better off buying this or subscribing to the service than you are to pay a blurb writer $100-$150, because what you can learn will pay dividends so much further into the future, so much further. And so if you're a newer author, and we're not, again, just to reiterate, we're not saying write by formula or market by formula, but if you're looking at 2 options, then this helps kind of clarify your decision making, shall we say. If you're an intermediate author, by intermediate I mean 3 books plus, maybe looking to diversify into another subgenre or writing another series, then absolutely this is the research that you need to be doing to kind of lift you up to the next level. And it's research that we've all done, all of us have done, that, you know, it's the time. It's like everything, you know, you pay for something or you invest the time, and so we're giving you time back. And also I think for the more intermediate author is absolutely the covers, although they'll probably have a slightly better understanding of that just innately, but it's around the advertising. And I think I'm speaking for all of us here and I'm making an executive decision, but it would be great to have Ned on again in the future to talk about this specifically with regard to advertising, because I think this is a huge area that again will save a huge amount of money from like throwing spaghetti at the wall in terms of taglines and things like that. So
and I think after the event too, it's you know, if your book is not doing well, this might give you an insight as to why.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. What you can change. Yep.
And it's
Yeah,
not
that's right.
it's not a personal thing. Again, it's data. It's not personal.
Yeah.
So it's easy in many ways. It's easier to take. So if I look, you know, I love my cover.
Not
I
someone's
love
an
my
opinion.
cover.
Yeah.
You know, with a single shell on the front cover that's actually a wolf shifter because the wolf enjoys oysters, but it's not resonating.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
it's easier for the covers to tell than somebody to, you know, for somebody like me to
Yep.
say, well, what do you expect?
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Are you thinking?
Yeah. This looks like a small town romance, and why is there a werewolf in my small town romance?
Exactly.
What the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So that's cool. So can you tell us a little bit about how people subscribe, what the cost is usually, and we'll...
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, so it's pretty easy. Go to kindletrends.com. We'll have the link in the show notes, and click the big purple button, which says try it free for a month, and you get a month free. If it's not for you, just cancel and you haven't spent any money. So that's the first thing I want to make the point, is that you have a month free. And then after that, shall I talk about the discount code now, Trudy?
Yes,
Is that appropriate?
yes,
Cool. All right. So normally it's $15 a month.
Is that US dollars?
Yes, that's $15 US a month, which is about the cost of a cup of coffee every week, I calculated. Coffee's cheaper in the United States, you know. So normally it's
But I would say that the quality is better in New Zealand, pretty much.
Again
Yeah,
with the
no one
controversial
can defend
statements.
themselves.
Come on. You don't
Anyway.
let's face it, you don't go to the US for a good cup of coffee.
But we don't want to insult our listeners. So
You're going to get us
exactly
hate
that.
mail. She's going to get us hate mail. Anyway, back to Nat.
Okay.
I've been drinking herbal tea this morning personally. So, okay, normally this Kindletrends is $15 US a month, but for SPA listeners, I have created a special discount code, and if you sign up before the end of March with the code SPA, that's SPA, then you'll get $5 US off, which brings it down to $10 a month. And that's in perpetuity. You still get a month free, but now you get the service for 10 measly bucks a month for the rest of eternity. Yeah. And that's a pretty, I'm not a boasting kind of person, but that's a pretty good price.
Pretty good.
That
Very
is
good.
excellent price.
Thank you so much. It's
Okay, so
amazing.
what was that? What was that discount code again?
The code is SPA, that's SPA, and we'll have it in the show notes.
That's actually our abbreviated. Thanks, Trudy.
I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to make it like SPA listeners or something, but then I thought, no, simple's
Don't
best.
complicate.
Simple is great. I love simple.
Simple is good.
Simple is awesome. All right, so that's cool. So before the end of March, sign up and you get that awesome discount, which is
before the end of March 2021. If you're listening in the future.
Sorry,
probably missed it.
And if you've got, if anyone's got any questions about the service, or they want to know what's going on before they sign up, you can just drop me an email at nat@kindletrends.com, and I'll get right back to you. I email, just as I was saying before, after people have signed up, after about 24 hours, I email every single person personally. You get an email saying this is actual Nat, it's not a machine, and we have a bit of a conversation about your publishing journey and your goals and stuff like that. And we brainstorm a few ways that Kindletrends can help you specifically, which is really cool because I love talking to authors about their thing. It's really exciting for me.
Okay,
Very
awesome.
Awesome. That
is so
cool.
great. Okay, so is there no more questions for the...
No?
Many more, but we will stop here.
Yeah, look,
we
I'll
are
come back
clicking
anytime.
on to an hour.
Plenty more to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm going back into Kindletrends dashboard now that I know more about it, and I'm going to dive deep.
Yeah, well, look, I'm really looking forward to you guys talking about it and asking me questions and things. And then maybe if I can come back on, we can have a Q&A session. Sometimes what I've done with people is I've had like a public Q&A where they post questions and I answer them. Because usually, you know what, if you've got a question, there's a good chance that someone else is thinking the same thing. So your questions are usually valuable because as authors, we all have a lot of the same challenges. You know, I have a lot of the same challenges as every other author. And that's why public question and answer sessions can be a lot of fun sometimes.
That's awesome. Okay, maybe we can look into that.
Sure.
So that is us. So if we want to find you, you've given your email address, but also it's www.kindletrends.com. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And where can we be found, Shah?
Wow, surprisingly, we can be found at spargirlspodcast.com, and you get 10 bonus points if you know what SPA stands for in our name. Just saying.
Okay, well, all of those people out there, I'm sure, are super excited to get those 10
Yeah.
bonus
But
points.
do come along to our website, look at the show notes for this episode. Net's kindly provided really good screenshots that I make sure that are in the show notes. And so
and also those links. I'm super excited to get the links that Nat was mentioning.
The links are fantastic, and I think like everything, it's sometimes you just got to kind of dive in a little bit and just work with it and play with it. You know, that's the thing, and you can't break it by pressing buttons.
And it's a journey. You know, like you're not alone. There's other people using it, and I've been really privileged to have the benefit of heaps and heaps of feedback from authors, both new authors who are starting out and really experienced authors and stuff like that. You'll see from some of the testimonials, there's people who are NYT bestsellers, but then there are people who are brand new and aren't making very much money yet themselves, you know, and all of that feedback is valuable to me. So again, if you've got a question, just ask me, because there's a good chance I've heard it before.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Well, thank
and don't
you
forget
all.
to sign up for our newsletter list.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Awesome. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. Thanks, Nat, for joining us. And this is us signing off.
Go
Thank you very
Kiwis!
much.
Bye.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.